Hey there, it's BoardGameDave. Today I'm reviewing a game called Spirit Island. It's a game that I've only played 3 times so far, but it's very quickly absolutely becoming one of my least favorite games of all time. I'm sorry, everybody. Spirit Island is currently ranked 11th on BoardGameGeek. Out of tens of thousands of games, Spirit Island is apparently the 11th best game in the world. Only one rank higher than Great Western Trail, by the way. We're coming for you. So Spirit Island is a very popular game in which you'll be playing as one of these spirits working cooperatively to defend this island from colonialists that are coming to the land and ravaging the natural resources and decimating the native population. So that's the theme of this game. Sounds pretty awesome. Why don't I like it? Obviously, I must be some sort of sociopath that doesn't like co-op games and also has really poor taste in board games. But I really don't think that's the case. While it's true that I don't prefer co-op games, Robinson Crusoe and Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth are in my top 20 games of all time, so I do like some co-op games. But there's at least 4 things about this game that make it an unenjoyable experience for me, and I'll go over those 4 things as quickly as I can now. Number 1, and the biggest thing for me, is the analysis paralysis. In this game, you absolutely have to work with all the other people around the table, which means a lot of communication for each round. For example, in the last game I played, there were 3 of us, and I couldn't plan out what I was going to do unless I knew what Andrew was going to do and also what Adam was going to do. But then if Andrew changed what he was going to do, that might throw off what I was going to do, which throws off what Adam was going to do, and he was going to do the hurricane, but then I need to pull out the Dahan, but then if I pull out the Dahan, then I can't give the energy to Andrew, and if Andrew doesn't have the energy, then he can't.
Slow powers. Anybody else have any slow powers?
No, I'm all speed.
Yeah, mine were sped up. So. Okay. So
the box says that this game plays from 90 to 120 minutes, and while I know that that's possible, our last play took closer to 4 hours, and so much of that time is just deliberating and talking. No action, just talking about what we might do, and then changing those plans. So what tends to happen in these kind of games? Well, you typically end up with an alpha gamer. This is my second problem with this game. The alpha player in a co-op game is usually the person who knows the game best, and they spend the game orchestrating or quarterbacking everybody else's turns. In other words, telling everybody else what to do. And people keep trying to tell me, Dave, this game is so complex and there's so many different spirits, there's no way that somebody knows the game well enough to be the alpha player in this game. That's definitely not the case. The second time I played this game, it was taught by somebody who demoed this game professionally, and one of the guys playing, this is his all-time favorite game. So there were 2 experts at this game around the table. And while they were both really good about letting us make our own decisions and answering our questions when we had them, in this game, I would actually prefer somebody to just alpha game, quarterback the whole thing, then have players just sitting around deliberating on what they're gonna do for 30 minutes at a time for 1 round. If you're really trying to win this game, which I think is pretty hard to do, you can either A, let the person who knows the game best just tell everybody what to do so you have the best chance of winning, or 2, let everybody just kind of flounder around and spend a ton of time trying to plan out the most efficient, the best path for each round. And that just doesn't sit right with me. And this is a very complex game, and if you don't know the game very well, you're just kind of sitting there with your cards like, Even though I really tried to not do this in my last play, all 3 times I've played Spirit Island, there was a point in the game where I just took the cards in my hand and laid them on the table and shrugged like, does somebody want to help me out over here? Tell me what to do? It's just not that satisfying when you're playing a game like this and you don't know how to make a good decision. My third issue with this game are the support roles. Now, I don't know if the designer really meant for them to be support roles per se, but take the lightning bird, I call it Zapdos, that I played as last game. So this spirit had 2 really cool abilities. One was that it could turn a player's slow actions into fast actions. That's a really big deal. And the second thing it could do was give the player 3 energy and then let them repeat one of their cards. You can probably understand that that's also a big deal too. So I've got these 2 powers that are really strong and they help the other players out, which is great, and I want to help them out, but the problem is, after I play those cards, they go in the discard pile, right? And in order to get them back, I have to spend my turn reclaiming my cards, which is just not that great of a turn to get, so I can use them for the next turn. So obviously Andrew and Adam would really like those 3 energy and to turn their slow actions into fast actions, and they'd love to replay their cards, but that means that I have to play the card and reclaim it. Play the card, reclaim it. And I'm not really getting energy, I'm not getting influence on the board. My turns just become, giving energy and abilities to the other 2 guys. And that's fine. And some players are really going to enjoy being that support role and bolstering everybody else's actions. But, almost 4 hours into the game, I'm like, I don't even know what I did this whole game. Like, I didn't really do anything exciting or interesting. So I really didn't like that part of the game. In a nearly 4-hour-long game, it would have been nice to feel like I did something kind of cool and exciting instead of, here's some energy. Now you can be fast. Well, now you can copy a card. that's it. And finally, my fourth issue with this game is the end of the game, specifically the win conditions. I was happy to see that even reviewers who really like Spirit Island will admit that the end game is a little bit weak. I'll try to keep this short, but there's basically two ways to win this game. The first is through fear. You gotta scare the ever-loving poops out of these people. They leave the island, they never come back, you win the game. The second way is through destruction. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. See, the win requirements through destruction change based on how much fear you've instilled in these invaders. We'll call them fear tiers. At the beginning of the game, you're in fear tier 1, and to win through destruction, you need to destroy all the invaders and their towns and their cities. Later in the game, you're in fear tier 2, and now you just have to destroy the towns and the cities. And finally, in fear tier 3, you just have to destroy the cities, which is a lot easier than defeating the cities and towns and invaders. And that's what I find so unsatisfying about this game. I mean, imagine playing a co-op game where the goal is to get to level 10 and you win. Okay, fantastic. An hour and a half into the game, the win condition drops to level 6. You're like, okay, I'm already on level 4, so that's great. One level later, the win condition drops to level 3. Okay, well, we got to level 5, so I guess we win? Like, that's weird, right? And what's even worse about this game is that in the beginning, there's hardly any cities on the board at all. It's mainly invaders and towns. So you've kind of already beat the final win condition, which is strange. But then the invaders, build more towns, which turn into cities. So then they start to kind of like spread out all over the map. Sure, that's thematic. I like that. So they start to expand like this, but then the gods get stronger and stronger. We kind of start wiping out the cities and towns like this. The weird thing is that the win condition drops, the threshold drops down to here, which is really weird. So the arc of the game is this, which I find really not compelling. So that's my beef with this whole win condition thing. I hope that made some kind of sense to those of you who haven't played this game. So just to recap, the analysis paralysis, the alpha player problem, the support type rules, and the win conditions. 4 things that make this game not very fun for me. However, I would like to give this game a proper review and as objectively as possible, see how this game does in each of the criteria that I use to rate games. Let's take a look. First, the art and components. The art is great, components, not fantastic, but pretty good. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Second, complexity and audience. This is kind of a tricky one, but I think that if you just saw the cover and didn't know anything about the game, you'd probably think, maybe it's not a family game, but casual gamers could pick it up and learn it together. Absolutely not. You need somebody to teach you this game that knows the game inside and out, because it's very complex. Somehow I know it's subjective, but I don't think the audience kind of matches the complexity, which is really high. I give that an 8.5 out of 10. Next is thematic integration, and I actually think the game does this really well. The invaders show up on this island, they build towns, they build cities, they explore out from there to build new settlements, they ravage the land, they pollute the land, they fight the Dahan, who are the indigenous people there. The story of the game makes perfect sense. And this whole anti-colonial theme is so unique and so refreshing and so different from a lot of the traditional board games of the past, and I feel like this theme could be well implemented by many games going forward. I give Spirit Island a 9 out of 10 for thematic integration. Fourth is intuitive mechanics, and I feel like that's where this game really struggles. Like, there are so many rules that just make no sense thematically, or they're really fiddly, like the invaders attack for 6 and my sacred site defends for 3, but then the rest of the attack hits the Dahan and the land simultaneously, so it blights the land and then the Dahan flip over, but then whoever's around left attacks the cities, and then we tip the cities to the side, but then they come back at the end of the round. Like, I could go on and on, but there's so many rules like that that just, I can't understand what the point of it is. I mean, I guess just for game mechanics, but it's not intuitive at all. I'm gonna be generous and give it a 7 out of 10. Next is replayability, and I think the game actually does pretty well here. There's 8 different spirits in the box that you can mix and match, and there's also 3 real-world colonial adversaries that you can play against, each one with 6 different difficulty levels. So there's a lot of variability in the box, although I think at some point you're pretty much just doing the same thing over and over, especially with those different difficulties. So a lot of replayability. I give it a 9 out of 10. Next is the length and fun factor. As for length, the last time I played it was about 4 hours long, which is way too long. I was ready for the game to be done about an hour and a half in, so not great on length, although I know it can be played faster. Fun factor, it's got its fun moments. I mean, there are times when somebody, decimates half the board. That's really exciting, but I feel like those moments are few and far in between. Most of the game, honestly, the last time I played, I really wasn't having any fun. That being said, I think it does have its fun elements. I don't like the way that the game kind of hits a climax and then just peters out for the last couple of rounds. I find that just super not fun. So I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. Next is the cost versus the value. It's actually hard to find this game online right now, so it's at $80 on Amazon, which is the MSRP, but I know that usually it goes for more around the low 60 range. I actually don't think you're getting that much in this box, and the components aren't, anything phenomenal. So 60 some dollars I'd say is fair to maybe a little bit overpriced. I give it a 7.5 out of 10 for the cost versus value. And because this is a co-op game, I'm gonna add one more criteria: agency versus alpha player. I really feel like the high complexity of this game is unfortunately a barrier that keeps a lot of new players from fully understanding this game, which lends itself to the alpha player problem. So I give the game a 5 out of 10 for that. Average that all out, and you've got about a 7.5 out of 10, which I think is pretty fair for a game that I admittedly really don't like. My personal rating for this game is a 2.8, which according to BGG is somewhere between bad and won't ever play this game again. Now, I know that most of you watching probably don't agree with me, and I'm completely aware that I'm very much in the minority when it comes to not liking Spirit Island, but I hope you found that I presented the game fairly and at least somewhat objectively, and maybe you're hearing about Spirit Island for the first time and you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds like a great game. I would love to play a heavy, complex co-op game with my friends. Maybe Spirit Island is for you. I would recommend that you go check it out. You'll probably really like it. It's just not a game for me, and honestly, I never want to play it again. And that's okay. That's the best part. It's okay to disagree on which games we like. If you feel so compelled, you are more than welcome to let me know in the comments down below why I'm stupid and wrong to not like Spirit Island, or maybe you agree with me and you're also not a fan of this game. Either way, feel free to let me know what you think, and in the meantime, have a wonderful week, take care, and happy gaming. Bye. My personal rating is gonna be a 2.8 out of 10. On BGG, that puts this game somewhere between bad and I never want to play this game again.